In this video, we're doing another Key Comic Spotlight, and this time on Marvel's flagship character, Spider-Man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, I'm going to do another Key Comic Book Spotlight, this time about Marvel's flagship character, Spider-Man. Now, if you haven't seen my Key Comic Book Spotlight videos before, what I do is I pick a superhero or supervillain, and I just highlight 5 key/grail books that the collecting community often targets when they are fans of this character. Now, this video isn't here necessarily for to identify SPEC or books that no one has ever heard of. A lot of this stuff is going to be academic, but the goal here is that maybe I can share, some info with new comic book collectors who want to find key Spider-Man books, and also share some, stuff that maybe old collectors didn't think about, or want to learn a little bit about the grails that people chase. But before I get into my picks, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Love interacting with you guys. It's been so awesome having this channel. Do one of those things, and I would really appreciate it. All right. With that being said, let us get into my 5 picks here for Spider-Man. And let me just preface and say that Spider-Man, obviously, one of the most famous superheroes there is, and there are so many Key and Grail books that it was almost impossible to pick 5. So if I leave out a bunch of good ones, it just is the nature of having to pick 5. So hopefully you guys still like a lot of the picks I show you today, and that you find them interesting. All right. So with that said, let us get into my first pick, and my first pick has to be Amazing Fantasy 15. Spider-Man's first full appearance. And for those who don't know, this is one of the early Marvel comic books written by Stan Lee in a series that was known as Amazing Fantasy. And this was the very first time that Spider-Man was ever put in a comic book. This is an absolute amazing comic to own. I mean, just look at the art. Look at how dynamic it was. Like, given that this was, a book from the 60s, like, it's so amazing to me that they still had a panel that had this sort of dynamic and visceral look to it. And for that reason, aside from the fact that this is just a great sort of rare collector item, I mean, it's just a beautiful piece of art. And for that reason, this is going to be one of those books that is not cheap. And as we dig into the numbers here, you'll see that on the census, there is a 9.4 highest grade known. This one says 875,000 to get your hands on one of these, but I feel like that number is going to be a lot higher. I mean, we're talking like the $1 million mark when you want to get your hands on one of the best Spider-Mans there is, Amazing Fantasy 15. And then you go all the way here to the bottom. A 0.5 is going to run you, it says here $8,000, but I really think that these numbers aren't as up to date as maybe this website would suggest. I think it's still going to run you around that $10,000 mark. But again, Amazing Fantasy 15, the absolute grail when it comes to Spider-Man fans, when it comes to even comic collecting fans. Like, this is a must-have book if you are to have one of the great comic book collections. Amazing Fantasy 15, definitely an endgame book for myself that I would like to have one day. All right, let's move on here to my second pick. My second pick is going to be Amazing Spider-Man #1. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first issue of the Amazing Spider-Man run. I mean, I'm sure anyone who's watching this video at one point in their life has purchased an Amazing Spider-Man book. Well, this is the one that started it all. Back in 1963, I believe it is, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This is, Spider-Man in his first solo series, ongoing series. I believe this is actually his second appearance. So it has that note. They had Amazing Fantasy 15 first, then they came out with Amazing Spider-Man 1. This is the first time that we have John Jonah Jameson, I think, is his first appearance as well. Spider-Man meets the Fantastic Four for the very first time. So for a lot of people, this is the ultimate Grail book. A lot of people have Amazing Spider-Man as their Grail run that they would like to collect, and this is the one that starts it off. So Amazing Spider-Man #1, if you can get your hands on it, it's an amazing book. No pun intended. All right, and we look into the numbers here. We see on the census a 9.6, going for that $480,000 range. That was sold in 2016. So, you can see here from these numbers, 2016, 17, 17. People people don't want to give up this book. You know, when you get your hands on this book, this is one that people want to hold for a very, very long time. And then down here at the bottom, a 0.5 might run you around the $3,000 mark. So those are the numbers for Amazing Spider-Man #1. All right, the next book here I have is a pretty interesting book. And this is, again, you know, for what I think is cool Spider-Man books to own for people out there. And that's going to be Amazing Spider-Man 252. And what is the significance of this? Well, for starters, it is a cover swipe of Amazing Fantasy 15, right? Cover swipe meaning it has that homage that it's paying to, you know, the Amazing Fantasy issue right here, as you can see. So that's really cool right out the gate. And then number 2, this is the first appearance of the black suit for Spider-Man. Now, granted, this might be a tie first appearance. I think there's a Marvel team up that has it, but because this is the Amazing Spider-Man book, this is the one that I'm picking and deciding to highlight. I also think this is the one that the market tends to chase the most. The cover is so dynamic, has that homage. This is the first appearance of the black suit, which would later go on to be Venom or create Venom with Eddie Brock. So this is a really, really great issue to own, and a really cool book to have if you can't get your hands on that Amazing Fantasy 15 or Amazing Spider-Man #1. This is still a great Spider-Man book to have, you know, and to cherish in your collection. And as we dig into the numbers here, we can see the 9.8 is going to run you around that $800 mark. And then here at the bottom, you know, there's not going to be as many CGC numbers to be seen, but typically speaking, I see, you know, mid-ish lower grades, usually going for, you know, that $70 range on eBay. So it's still going to cost you a little bit, you know, maybe pushing around the $100 mark to get your hands on this book. But hey, it's a great book to have, and I think it's going to be one that people collect for a very, very long time. All right, let's go on now to my 4th pick, and this is going to be a little bit of a cheat because I'm actually going to have 4 picks within my 4th pick, and this is for this reason it's going to be Spider-Man #1 by Todd McFarlane. Now, for those who don't know, this was a run in the early 90s that Todd McFarlane started, where he got to write Spider-Man, and he actually, you know, kind of started that variant cover craze. So this is like the reason I'm picking out a number of these books is because there's so many variants of this one. So this is the original one here. I believe this is called the green cover, or maybe that's a sort of a slang term within the community, but people typically call this the green cover. There's also the gold edition one here. Then there's the silver edition. And then lastly, this is actually a different book, but within the same run, they went to Spider-Man 13 and they did the same sort of cover design, except they put him in the black suit. So these 4 books right here are ones that people typically chase when they are collecting Spider-Man. And what's cool about these books is this is like a super classic, like an instant classic cover and pose that was created by Todd McFarlane. And we've seen this one cover swiped and paid homage over and over and over again. Spawn had a book like this. Wolverine has been in positions like this. Basically all the Spider-Man characters, Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, all the characters have had covers that pay tribute to this particular position. So this is one for that reason that I think is a really cool book just to have in the collection. And, you know, between all of these books here, the green, the gold, the silver, and number 13, which has the black suit, this is one that, you know, typically you can find this for maybe the $20 range on eBay if you are lucky and able to find a good deal. Sometimes even cheaper, you know, because this was a high print for a lot of these books. So there is a lot of inventory out there. But again, still an awesome book to have. I mean, it presents beautifully. It's a dynamic pose. It's by Todd McFarlane and it's Spider-Man. And it was a moment in time for the 90s. So definitely worth getting your hands on if you are a fan of not only Spider-Man, but Todd McFarlane as well. All right, and just quickly to dig into the numbers, I won't show all the numbers here, but you can see here from the 9.8, you know, $65 for this particular cover. You're not going to find lower grade CGCs, but again, you know, it's going to be that $20 mark. Here we have the gold. Looks like this 9.8 is going to go for 85. The silver 9.8 60, and then the Spider-Man 13 with the black suit actually is going to be the most expensive one. That's going to be 9.8, $130. Again, that black suit I think people really like, and that's part of the reason why I pointed to Amazing Spider-Man 252. All right, and the last book I'm going to point out here for Spider-Man is going to be Amazing Spider-Man 529. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of the Iron Man spider suit that was given to Spider-Man by Iron Man. As you can see here, Tony Stark gives Peter his new costume, the Iron Spider, and we saw the version of this within the Infinity War and Endgame movies where Tony Stark gave Spider-Man, you know, that suit, and he had the spider claw arms and everything like that. Well, this is the comic book that concept was pulled from, and that is Amazing Spider-Man 529. And I wanted to point out to this book because this is still a cool little book to own, a cool moment in history, ties into Endgame. And you know, if you're someone who wants to have a very special Spider-Man book, but you know, wants to do it on like the lower end, this is a book that might be good for you to check out. I mean, still, look, an amazing pose, very, very dynamic cover, and very, very cool moment in time. So if we dig into the numbers here, a 9.8, it's going to run you around the high end of 150, and then, you know, when you go into the low numbers, you're not going to really find too many CGCs. But again, this is another book that typically speaking, you can find on eBay for around the $20, maybe the $25 mark if you have to overspend to get your hands on it. But one thing to point out about this book right here is that there is a second print that came out of it. So, you know, if you are searching for this book and you want to get your hands on it, just make sure you know which one you want to buy, either the first print or the second print. They're very, very close in terms of design. So, you know, whichever one you want, I guess, aesthetically, it's up to you. But again, Amazing Spider-Man 529, first appearance of the Iron Spider. Anyways, that is all I have for this video. Those are my 5 Key and Grail comic books when it comes to collecting Spider-Man, the flagship character of Marvel. Again, there are so many amazing, but no pun intended. There are so many great, excellent, incredible Spider-Man books to have if you are a Spider-Man fan. And these are just sort of 5 that I tried to point out, you know, that are, you know, cover different ends of the spectrum in terms of like what they cost to buy them. So hopefully, you know, you guys maybe learned a little something and you know, you guys enjoyed the video. Anyways, that is all I got for this one. Let me know if you guys have any of these books. I would definitely love to get my hands on an Amazing Fantasy 15. That is definitely an end game goal for me when it comes to my comic collecting hobby. So let me know what you guys have. Do you have any of these books? I totally want to live vicariously through you guys if you do. Drop me a like, comment, or subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.